Strong connections. Building positive teacher-student relationships based on personality types, learning styles, methods of communication, and contrasting perspectives. My name is Amy Esler-Boyce, and I first started to explore these topics during my undergrad and graduate study. This paper has been presented at the MTNA conference in New York City in March 2012, and I look forward to its publication in February of next year. Although multiple factors contribute to the success of a student's musical education, a healthy relationship between student and teacher greatly contributes to a positive learning experience. A student sometimes thrives or wilts under the tutelage of one teacher more than another, and a strong connection between a student and a teacher can be difficult to achieve. Although the teacher leads the relationship by transferring knowledge and providing direction, an astute teacher will also consider the emotional and psychological needs of the student. This paper analyzes 4 sample personality types, 3 learning styles, 2 methods of communication, and 2 different perspectives. This theoretical background lays the basis for a practical model, the instruction of a C major scale to 4 piano students with contrasting personality types. If teachers understand their students' personality types and learning styles, they can modify their approach and perspective within the piano lesson. The better you know your students, the better you will be able to teach them. When you know your students' individual needs, you can adjust your approach to their learning styles and emotional makeup. Never underestimate the effect you may have on your students' lives. Bonnie Blanchard, Making Music and Enriching Lives. Beginning with a theoretical background, we'll first look at personality types. In ancient Greece, Hippocrates developed the theory of humorism, which suggested that the body's 4 fluids, or humors, regulated its health. Galen hypothesized that the balance of the 4 humors contributed to moods or temperaments. His theories entered largely into the philosophy of the time. Although undoubtedly influential, the theory of physical and emotional temperaments has been criticized by modern science. Other factors such as age, experience, geography, or genetics have been found to influence personalities as well. Despite the controversy surrounding the study of temperaments or personality types, the observation of behavioral characteristics is a helpful exercise for a teacher. If a teacher realizes the inherent personality differences between students and embraces these differences rather than attempting to change or mold them, then perhaps appreciation and empathy will develop in the lesson rather than frustration or strife. Although categorizing the whole of humanity into 4 personality types is unrealistic and utterly simplistic, the use of 4 sample personality types as an example of potential personality types is a useful mechanism. There are a plethora of theories on personality types prevalent in modern psychology. Popular personality type theories include the Myers-Briggs type indicator, Friedman's type A and type B theory. But for the purpose of this paper, the theories of American psychologist David Keirsey will be used as a basis for discussion and explanation. Keirsey named his 4 personality types Artisan, Guardian, Rationalist, and Idealist. Martha Baker Jordan makes the following observations in the text Practical Piano Pedagogy. The Artisan type. These people are impulsive and hunger for stimulation. They take great chances in order to gain the rush. The artisan refuses to be tied down, and they can become burdened with responsibilities, or if they feel that life is too binding, they can become restless and have the urge to escape. This type is also the great performer. As students, they are highly active and easily excitable. An artisan may be energetic, enthusiastic, but perhaps not very thorough. He will have a hard time being patient enough to take concrete advice or direction. I like to call this student the performer because the need for rush and excitement can lead toward exciting performance. Next, we have the guardian. You'll see beside the guardian I have written a security of rules emphasis. These people are responsible, stable, and reliable. They seek to do what is expected and enjoy fulfilling their duty. They want to belong, and they want to establish and preserve social units. They are as steady as a rock. Guardians are realistic, practical, reliable, protective, and helpful to others. For this reason, they have a be prepared attitude. As students, they are conformers and are usually seen as the good students. They like to know what is expected and enjoy following the rules. A guardian will be conscientious, but may not be ready to take initiative for new concepts. They may be dutiful, but may have problems judging themselves objectively because they are always looking to others for approval. The rational student enjoys structure. These people have a competence hunger. They want to be intelligent, to be able to do things well under varying circumstances. They get hooked on storing up wisdom. They want insight into problems and are thrilled with problem solving. This person is always looking for the most efficient and effective way to do things. The student is calm and emotionally cool. They question the limits and want logical reasons for those limits. A rational student might think for himself and may show a willingness to experiment and to take advice. Finally, the idealist type. There is an achievement emphasis with the idealist. These people do not live in a world of actions or responsibilities or competencies. Rather, they live in a world of people and relationships. They hunger to have deep and meaningful relationships. They strive to be sincere and to communicate with others in an emphatic manner. Idealist types search for their unique identity. They need to feel special, valued for their unique qualities. They need to feel like they have significance and have a sense of being worthwhile. These students require a great deal of time and attention from their parents or teachers. They care deeply and are easily affected by how others treat them. They may seek approval and would likely make strong emotional connections with a teacher's opinion. The dependency could become burdensome, potentially, on the teacher. These personality types are narrow categories, but are insightful profiles of potential. Which personality type best describes you? Can you think of some students who fit one of these personality types perfectly? Can you think of others that fit between the personality types described? Do you find that you enjoy teaching the students that have a similar personality to you more or less than those that don't? Do you find it frustrating to teach those? Continuing with the theoretical background, we'll discuss learning styles. Each personality type prefers a certain way of processing information and is more comfortable with specific kinds of presentation. This way of processing is influenced by the way the information is presented. Just as there are differing personality types, there are also differing styles of teaching and learning. An invisible boundary or crossover point occurs between the presentation or teaching of knowledge and information and the assumption or learning of the same. For example, if a teacher presents information orally, the student will have learned orally. The teaching style has become fused, appropriately or not, with the learning style. There are three basic styles of communication: oral, visual, and kinesthetic. If the reciprocated and mutual nature of teaching and learning was to be acknowledged, these styles might be entitled communication styles, for the teacher must communicate or teach in a way that the student can easily accept the communication or learn. The teacher must absorb the student's learning style in order to teach in that style. Visual learning is the processing of any information absorbed through vision. For music students, visual stimulation might originate from the music score, written instructions on an assignment notebook, or watching another musician perform. Visual learner musicians might be strong sight readers or theoreticians. Oral learning is the processing of any information absorbed through hearing. For music students, oral stimulation originates from teachers' spoken directions, recordings, performances, or their own playing. Oral learners might enjoy playing by ear and may develop superior sensitivity to musical elements such as tone quality. Kinesthetic learning is the processing of any information absorbed through physical activity. For music students, kinesthetic stimulation might originate from mimicking teachers' actions, applying physical motions from everyday life to musical study, dancing, or moving to a specific rhythm. Kinesthetic learners might have an excellent sense of rhythm, could be closely attached to the feel of a certain instrument, and might memorize repertoire based on physical memory. Although these learning styles provide helpful perspectives for teachers, they must be viewed with a healthy degree of skepticism as well. Researchers find that although the literature on learning styles is enormous, very few studies have used an experimental methodology capable of testing the validity of learning styles applied to education. Like personality type assessments, learning style assessments are only a beginning place for our teachers, a starting place for further exploration. To confine students to a narrow personality type or single learning style could limit their ability to develop into well-rounded students and individuals. At present, there is little research to determine the results of multimodal learning. For example, if a visual learner spent time in an oral teaching environment, would a transformation occur? Currently, researchers do not have conclusive answers. Furthermore, any example of education failure cannot be blamed solely on the teacher's lack of understanding, methods of teaching, and the approach to the subject material. Again, this is too simplistic an explanation. Learning styles can evolve as the student becomes more disciplined or mature, or as environmental factors change. An awareness of learning styles might contribute to teaching style, but that awareness is only one factor in a comprehensive teaching technique. Our sample personality types may prefer one learning style over another. They may also respond differently to different approaches to information processing. A behavioral learning approach and a cognitive learning approach are two examples. Behavioral learning theory. Learning is the process of forming connections between stimuli and responses. New information is learned piece by piece like a puzzle. The behavioral learning theory defines learning as the process of forming connections between stimuli and responses. Motivation to learn develops from drives such as hunger and the availability of external forces such as rewards or punishment. Students must obey the teacher's questions or instructions and provide the correct answers or behaviors. Students' understanding is being formed from sources outside of themselves. The behavioral learning theory grew in popularity following the experiments of Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov, who developed the theory of classical conditioning. By repeatedly ringing a bell when food was given to a dog, Pavlov conditioned the dog to salivate at the sound of a bell regardless of the presence of food. It is perhaps difficult to consider any experiment that was proven with animals rather than with humans, but Pavlov claimed that as humans and higher order animals share the foundation of the nervous system, some very general and tentative inferences could be drawn from the latter to the former. Pavlov's principle of classical conditioning led to the emergence of the doctrine of behaviorism. Similarly, American psychologist Edward Thorndike theorized that trial and error repetition was an essential factor in the learning of the connections or associations between stimulus and response. Claiming that psychology is the science of the intellect, characters, and behaviors of animals, including man, Thorndike also based the majority of his theories on animal experimentation. He concluded that if a response is rewarded with something pleasurable, such as a gold star or praise for a music student, the tendency to respond in that particular manner is strengthened. If, however, the response is followed by displeasure, perhaps by criticism or scolding, or no reward at all, the tendency to respond is weakened. The behavioral learning theory is built on the fundamental principle that stimulus and response is a sufficient model for learning. One can only wonder if positive reinforcement is truly sufficient to motivate and sustain human behavior in complex learning situations. Although most music teachers would not instruct their students at a demeaning animalistic level, perhaps music teachers would admit that stimulus-response teaching can easily occur. For example, imagine an extreme case in which a music teacher speaks sharply to students when they play a note, chord, or passage incorrectly, and rewards them with kind words when they play correctly. The student will most likely improve, either by pure accident or by a superior sense of self-preservation, but may not have understood the concept of score reading. Often it is much easier, howbeit much less effective, for a teacher to treat the symptoms of confusion or ignorance, rather than to remedy the deficiency. How much simpler it can be to give orders, dictate information, and berate the student, rather than to properly explain or demonstrate a particular point. Cognitive learning theory. Learning is the thought process of a student in an individual situation. New information is first experienced and then understood. The cognitive learning theory regards learning as a thought process of the student in an individual situation, subject to the influences of that particular environment. The student first connects to their own experience and prior knowledge, and then works in reverse to ascertain the theories and principles that contributed to that truth. A music teacher, for example, may wish to teach the terms forte and piano to a young music student. A behavioral